What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Bedivere. Thank you so much again for joining me on another episode of Zero to Hero. In today's episode, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. In this series, we've gone from basically nothing in Factorio to trying to build a very efficient and massive Megabase. But along the way, there's a lot of planning that's involved. So in today's episode, I'm going to be laying out how exactly our Megabase is going to function and the thought process on how we're going to achieve that. As always, if you enjoy the content, be sure to smash that like button, click the subscribe button as well if you haven't already, and that little notification bell down there at the bottom keeps you up to date with all new content that I bring to the channel. I stream every Thursday and Sunday afternoon over at twitch.tv/Bedivere. You can find all the links to all my socials, including Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram, all in the description down below. So in this episode, I chose to start it off in our stream series. I've been streaming this series over at Twitch, like I said before, links down in the description. But before we transfer our YouTube series Megabase into a full-blown Megabase, I'd like to explain exactly how it's going to function and what it's going to look like in this playthrough here on this save game. In the last episode, we went through and created a nuclear refueling train that will go to all of our depots, all of our stations where we're parking all of our trains, and refuel all of them, you know, with the best train fuel that we have. Now, that being said, our Megabase is obviously going to use trains. You can use all bots, you can use all belts, you can use a combination of trains, belts, and bots. In our series, what I like to do with my Megabase is have each product be made in its own little subsection of the base, and then have the different intermediary products request and demand those products, right? So here's what it's going to look like. Let me go into map mode real quick. In our stream playthrough, we've completed not nearly as much as I'd like to, but it's going to be a lot easier to explain what we want to accomplish in our YouTube series, using this base as an example. So the one thing that's ironically missing from this, the beginning of this base, is our nuclear fuel. I'm planning on doing it right where this copper mine is, because I like having it near our nuclear power plant like we do have on our other save. So once this gets depleted, we'll be able to plop down our blueprints and have our nuclear train, our nuclear fuel train in this section over here. So if you don't see that, that's why. But what I like to do, and this is essential for all of my Megabases, is I like to have some kind of a neural highway, a supply and demand function for all of our resources, right? So if I go to a power pole right now, you see in the bottom right hand corner, you see there's icons that are in red and icons that are in green. So I like to have my red icons be my demand, things that are taken away from the ecosystem of the base, and then the green icons being the supply. You know, what does the base have in supply that it could use as demand, or as supply, I guess, hence the word. So what trains are doing, let's go to, for example, our iron smelting, and let's click on one of the trains, right? So a train will always start at its depot, go to the supply of what it's assigned to, for in this case is iron plate, and then it'll go to the demand of wherever that iron plate is needed, right? So in this case, we have our iron smelting here. We got modules, speed beacons, we got all that stuff, which we will go over in the future. But essentially what it does is this supply, right? This supply of iron plate gets brought out in terms of train loads, right? So right now I am using circuits to count every single product and chain it all together. So if we go to this arithmetic combinator, it says we have 230,000 iron plates, and divide that by by the stack size of each train, and that outputs to 7 trains of iron plate, and that gets brought along the green wire along the neural network of the base. Now, I know that's probably a lot of information for people that are new to circuits and all of that thing and all of that stuff, right? So what I'm gonna do is let me copy and paste this thing here, and we can do a little bit of work. Okay, I'm gonna use some constant combinators here, just to kind of go over the thought process, right? If we look at our inventory size, right? When you say something has a stack size of 100, 200, or 50, that's these items, right? All these belts stack in items of 100, right? If we want to use, do I have any trains on me? I do not. Let's go ahead and go get a train really quick. Okay, so we're here actually in our iron smelting row, column, station. I don't know how to describe it. But if we look at our trains and our train wagons, we have 4 rows by 4 by 10 rows. Sorry, not 4 by 10. A 4 by 10 grid. 4 rows of each 10 squares. Man, I'm tired. I don't know what I'm saying. But each wagon allows for 40 stacks, right? And depending on your stack size, each train can hold a different amount of stuff, right? So for example, this wagon, and if it's going to be hauling iron plate, here's a full iron car. Each wagon here is 4,000. And then each train in total, since we're running 2x8 trains, would be 4,000 times 8 wagons, which is 32,000. Okay. So essentially what this station is doing is I got a wire connected to each box that is reading its contents, traveling along the power poles. And then all those contents, if you see at the end here, that's 230,000 iron plate. That's going into an arithmetic combinator. So what arithmetic combinators and decider combinators do, as well, I can go over the other one as well. These 3 combinators right here. So an arithmetic combinator has an input, and that can be a number or a symbol. And the symbol can be, you know, whatever input that we have. For example, this one, we have 230,000 iron plate traveling along a green wire, right? Green and red wire, they are different, okay? They have different colored inputs. Right, so we have these 2 types of signals, and then that can be set as an input in an arithmetic combinator. For example, our input in this equation is iron plate, so it reads the signal iron plate and however many there is, for example 230,000, and in this case we are dividing by 32,000, which is going to be the total train amount that a train can hold of iron plate, and we're going to output that number in an iron plate signal, right? So that output is going to be 7, and that 7 iron plate is translating to 7 full iron plate trains that this station can provide, and that gets output into our neural network, into our supply, right? And then we have this second wire here, and it's very important to do it in a different color, and this is going to turn on and off our station when our station, if our station cannot supply at least 1 full train's worth, it'll turn off, right? So that's what this this condition here is stating. Only enable it when iron plate is greater than 0, meaning if this output here, or if this like output signal here is 1 or greater, if there's no output signal, then it's going to shut off the train station, and then all of these trains are going to go forward to the next available station. For example, this station here that will end up being here could have a full train's worth, right? But they're going to be named the exact same station. So if, for example, this station has available product and can supply a full train, but this one can't, this train will still go to the nearest station that is turned on, right? So that's why we have to turn a station off if it can't supply a full train's worth. So then essentially what happens is other places in the factory, essentially, like for example, green circuits here, No, this is red circuit, sorry. For example, the green circuit's build here is demanding iron plate as well as copper plate. So what it's doing here is it's taking the maximum amount that it can hold, subtracting by the amount that's actually in the chest, which leaves us with how much space we have, and dividing that by a train size will demand a specific amount of trains. For example, we have 21,000 available, or 22,000 iron plates worth of available room in those chests. But since a full train carries 32,000, it won't trigger this station to open until it hits 32,000. It won't call a train to come fill it up or to come unload until it actually needs a full train's worth. So that's why here you're seeing 25,000's worth of input signal and not an output signal. So that's essentially what the arithmetic combinator does. It takes an input, does an operation. You can do multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, and then you can do bit shifts, and that's all complicated. Explore at your own risk. And then there's also the very simple arithmetic combinator. You can read like your amount of iron plate and be like, hey, if this is greater than, or if a station has less than, X amount, open it up. For example, we have that in our fueling stations. And yes, we're still using coal until we transition to nuclear. I don't like doing the rocket fuel in between. I think it's pointless and a waste of time. In that case, I mean, we could just have, whoops, that's probably not a good way to do it. So you can use an arithmetic combinator to just enable and disable stations just like so. But I also have it at the, where is it? At the demand stations? I thought I had it at the demand stations. No, because this is arithmetic as well. But you get my point. You can have, if iron plate is less than 1,000, request a train to come out. That type of thing, right? So what this base does is it counts how many trains have left to go fulfill a supply and demand run. And I have this little arithmetic combinator here that it reads every green signal. It multiplies by -1. For example, we have 2 green signals. So the input there, we have 14 red signals and 2 green signals, which we see they're all chained up. It takes that as an input. It takes all the green signals, multiplies it by -1, and then outputs it as an iron plate. And then we have the output signal going both on the red wire and the green wire, and that's going back to our neural network. So why we're doing that is if we have a supply and demand somewhere, and then we have a train going to fulfill that run, we have to subtract it on either end because we already have a train out fulfilling that quote-unquote order, right? And so how our depots work is we run our trains on 3 checks, right? So first we have to check that we have the supply available from one of our outposts. Second, we have to check that if a station is demanding something. And our third check is if the train ahead of us has already left. For example, this first train is always going to have this output signal because there's no train ahead of it, so it's always going to have 1 check in the green. This green wire is coming from our neural network. That's checking if it's greater than 0, meaning that we have, supply, and then it runs into the station. And then this one's checking if we have demand and runs into the station. And now the trains are wired to only they're wired to stay at the depot until their circuit equals 3, or green signals equal 3, and that's our 3 green checks. Then it'll go to supply iron plate and demand iron plate. And while the train is out, it'll subtract the supply and demand from the neural network of the base. Now, there are bugs in this. I know that. I'm still tweaking little things, but that's essentially the basis of how our entire base is going to work. We need to check if we have supply, need to check if we have demand, and need to check if we already have trains out there running those jobs, because we don't want to oversaturate our highway network with too many trains, because then lanes are going to get congested. We only want the exact amount of trains out there that we require. So that's how the entire base is going to run. If we go to our real quick, see, and there's still, I don't know why 2 trains get sent every time there's only 1 order left. And I think it's because that switch happens instantaneously from when one train is fulfilled. For example, when this one train is fulfilled, this switch will turn green at the exact same time. At the exact same time that we still need one, right? So this switch will turn green, allowing this one to go at the exact same time that this calculation is made to subtract it from the neural network and come back around. So that's the bug with this, is there's always going to be 2 trains running, but this one will be full, which is weird. But nah, it's okay. So that's essentially how this base works, right? So we got our demand stations here requesting a certain amount of trains worth of product, and then we got our product depots here that are supplying X amount of trains worth of product in their own right. And then it travels all across this neural network, and all these items, or all these icons on the bottom right, show how much our factory needs, and we can also see like where we're lacking behind. For example, right now we are demanding 7 trains worth of plastic, and that's because we haven't done plastic yet. We have our red circuit set up here with green circuits going in as well as the copper going in. Yes, I know this is not connected. It's on purpose. Don't at me in the comments. But we still need to make our plastic area, as well as like our oil processing and all that. So that's still there. But it can show you where you're almost lacking once your base is fully automated and going at 100%. You can see maybe where you're lacking. But yeah, and then we have our depot here, and our depot here, this is running all of our resource trains. So I have a 3, and I'll go over this probably in not the next episode, because the next episode is going to be, I think, doing our outsourcing our iron plate smelting as well as copper plate smelting, and we'll try to find more room to do this resource depot, but we'll go over it in a separate video. But it runs on the same logic, where it checks the demand that we need for iron ore or any other ore, as well as the supply, and the check that the train ahead of it is gone, or the lane ahead of it is gone, since each lane in this thing has 3 trains. So it all runs on that same logic of supply, demand, and making sure there's not too many trains out in the system. So yeah, I mean, that was the whole entire point of this video, was to show you guys where my head is at and how I want our Megabase to operate, and how we're going to expand into further sections. For example, you know, outposting our iron plate, outposting our copper plate, outposting green circuits like we have here, then outposting red circuits, and then outposting oil processing, and slowly but surely getting rid of everything that's here. For example, in this playthrough, we had just finished, you know, our smelting, but we can start getting rid of these temporary we can start getting rid of all these smelting columns and bringing in trains of iron ore, copper ore, and we're already doing that with the green circuits. We had all of this green circuit assembly over here that was consuming a lot of our iron plate and copper plate, but now that's all being consumed here, so we can outsource that, bring in green circuits, and now we don't have to waste so much of our, we don't have to like double smelt, you know what I mean? But yeah, like I said, this is how I want the direction of our other map to go. So as always, if you enjoy the content, be sure to smash that like button, click the subscribe button as well if you haven't already, and that little notification bell down there at the bottom keeps you up to date with all new content that I provide on the channel. If you have any tips, tricks, suggestions, or even questions on how we're gonna start setting up this Megabase, because it is very confusing to just talk through it without actually going through and implementing it. So if you have any questions on how we're gonna be doing this going forward, feel free to leave your comment down in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to explain it as well as I can through text and typing, because it's a lot easier to just show you. But at this point, can't really show you yet, just because I wanted to give a rundown of exactly what we're going to do, because I don't want our next video to be 2 hours long, right? So this is a very high level thinking and brainstorming of what our Megabase is going to look like. If you want to follow along on this playthrough that we're doing right here, I stream every Thursday and Sunday afternoon over at twitch.tv/Betterveer. All the links to all my socials, including Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram, in the description down below. Be sure to follow all of them. We're building an awesome community, and pop in there and ask away in your questions on how you want to see me do my Megabase, on if you have questions on how we're doing it here, or if you have any tips or suggestions based off of how you run your own Megabases. Feel free to hop in my Twitch chat and share your experiences with Factorio, because as always, there's no right way to play Factorio, and that's the beauty of the game. All right, guys, that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for joining me on this very short video. We're going to get back at it in the next one. Thank you so much again. Stay safe. Have a good one. Peace.